en welkom by nog 'n episode van Namibië sonder grense. Ons kuier vandag in Engeland en gesels met Namibiër Stephanie Collins. Stephanie het naby Windhoek in Kommersdal groot geword en is so 20 jaar gelede Engeland toe. Sy het intussen getrou en met 'n gesin begin, maar sy het lank nog nie van Namibië vergeet nie. Stephanie het tydens die COVID-19 pandemie 'n liefdadigheidsprojek begin waar hulle geld ingesamel het om kospakkies in Namibië te versprei na gesinne in nood. Na die pandemie het die projek egter nie gestop nie, maar net gegroei en is nou geregistreer as 'n liefdadigheidsorganisasie onder die naam Help for Nam. Stephanie vertel vir ons meer van hierdie inspirerende projek en die groep vroue wat haar help om dit 'n realiteit te maak.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Collins. I'm originally from Namibia and I was born in an area called Kommersdal in Windhoek. I had a very, very happy childhood with a big family, all in one household, multi-generational as is typical Namibian. And yes, I grew up with my cousins and aunts and uncles all around and friends and, you know, typical sort of childhood that we knew back in the day where the kids were playing out in the streets until the street lights come on, and you know, it was just, yeah, very good memories. And you know, went to school in the local area as well where I grew up. Church, you know, was a big part of our culture as well growing up. A lot of influence from church as well. So yeah, so I currently live in England, near Heathrow, and how I've ended up here is 20 years ago this year I came to England just on a working holiday visa. You know, back at the time they had these visas for Commonwealth countries where youngsters could come over and do a 2-year visa where they're working as well as earning, you know, to earn some money and then also travel while they're here. So I came over on the 2-year working holiday visa, but of course I'd already met my now husband back in Namibia, and he happens to be English as well. So there was a bit of an ulterior sort of motive as well behind coming to England, because obviously, you know, we'd met each other and we decided that we wanted to give the relationship a go. So I moved over here to, you know, on this holiday visa, and then, you know, the rest is history really, in terms of we got married. We got married in Namibia as well. Beautiful hotel there in Windhoek, with all my family and friends around, and yes, it was just great, you know, really good experience as well. Very special day for both of us. And then we, you know, just carried on with life as we know it, in terms of started a family, bought our own house, you know, and I definitely feel that I've set roots now here in England. And this is obviously where my children were born. So yeah, I'm just so settled now in England. Although I have to say at the beginning, when I first came, it wasn't as plain sailing, you know, it was really hard. Again, with the culture difference, just not having your normal support network that you would normally rely on back home. Everything was different. And then of course the weather. The weather's probably the thing that really gets you down the most, I suppose, coming from a sunny country, you know, that where the sun is always shining, way back in Namibia. That was quite hard to adapt to, and I still struggle with it today, but it's something you sort of get used to, and you just make sure you know, wrap up warm or have the right clothing, and you do get used to it after a while. And I guess I can say I'm a bit more climatized now than I was when I first came, but it definitely is a bit of a shock when you first come to England, because even just seeing snow for the first time, you know, I remember looking out the window where I was working and just standing there in awe looking at it, and it's beautiful to look at, but very cold to be in. But now, you know, with the children, they just love playing in it, and it's not actually as cold when it snows. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but it's actually okay to be out in, you know. So yeah, we have a lot of fun when it's really cold as well. But obviously, me being Namibian, I do miss the sun a lot. And when the summer comes, that I guess is when I'm sort of, you know, really at my happiest here. So my life here in England is very interesting, and I'm very, very happy here. I have my family, as I've mentioned, James, Sebastian and Claire. And I also have the rest of my brothers and sisters also living elsewhere in England. So that definitely does help, because we get to, even though it is a bit of a travel, you know, on the trains or whatever, we do get to see each other more often than we would have been like if they'd just been back in Namibia again. So I recently returned back from a trip from Namibia, actually. And I try to go as often as I can, at least, you know, once a year, or there was a time when it wasn't that easy once we started our family to be able to go back as often, because, you know, other commitments with family, and then of course the costs as well, you know, you just can't afford to go back as often. But we try our best. And I always remember, like, one of the things when you drive in to the city, you know, from the airport, that buzz, that sort of feeling that you get, and I still get it every time I go, and it's just like, oh, I'm home, you know. So that's quite heartwarming, you know, when I go home. So while we were here in the UK, my husband, through work, got the opportunity to relocate to Botswana in southern Africa. So obviously, that being a neighboring country to Namibia, we, you know, sort of grabbed the opportunity, because then it meant we could actually go and see family and friends in Namibia a bit more often. And it's just being back in the sunshine again. You know, the children were quite young at the time, and we just thought it'd be a great opportunity for them to be able to have a similar childhood that I would have had, you know, playing in the sand, climbing trees, being in the sun, you know, and just, yeah. So we welcomed the opportunity, and we were stationed in Botswana for 4 years. So that would have been, I'd say, like my second big sort of move beyond borders of Namibia, albeit via, you know, the UK. So that was also a very, very great experience for us. And the children, to this day, they were so young, but they do have memories of, you know, little things that we did when we were there. Obviously, my daughter loves animals, so that was like one of her highlights, you know, being able to go on the game drives. And so that was also, I mean, the Botswana people are just such great people. Like, they're just so friendly and welcoming. And it was very much similar to being back home, being back in Namibia, you know. So I think we settled in quite easily, or easier than, you know, having come from a country like Namibia. It sort of there was a lot of similarities, which helped us along a lot. We had a great time in Botswana, but unfortunately the contract ran out, and you know, it was time for us to come back to the UK. So that's where we came back to, and that's where we are still living today. So I decided to participate in the program because I love any opportunity to be able to talk about Namibia, or talk about where I'm from, or tell people about, you know, where I've been and sort of my journey so far. But also I welcome the opportunity to be able to tell you about the charity that we started. So when the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world, you know, everybody was going into lockdown. There was anxiety and hysteria around, you know, losing family members, losing jobs. And I mean, I don't even need to explain to everybody the impact that it had on everybody in the whole world. So while we were in England and sort of isolating and having to just stay home, obviously I was keeping an eye on what's happening in Namibia with friends and family and all that. And quite frankly, it was just so devastating to see. And I think the UK being a first world country like it is, I think obviously they could cope with dealing with something like the pandemic probably a lot better than the likes of a third world country like Namibia. So we were just so devastated by the situation for our fellow Namibians back home that basically I said to my friend who lives in Manchester and my sister who lives in Liverpool, and I said, you know what guys, let's see what we can do just to help people with some food. So we started fundraising here in the UK and amongst friends and family and neighbours and, you know, anybody that was willing to help us. And we started purchasing some food at suppliers in Namibia and putting them into emergency food parcels and then distributing them to households with children through a network of volunteers that we got. So there's about 10 volunteers altogether in different areas. So we've got Windhoek, Rehoboth, Okahanya are the three areas where we operate in. And we tried to do as many parcels as we can, depending on how much money we had. You know, it was just a case of like really sort of trying to fundraise as best we can, you know, in the circumstances. So it was more like an emergency response to the pandemic and just trying to help as best we can. We then registered as a charity here in the UK, Help for Nam. And yes, so then we were sort of official, if you like, and it did become easier to be able to approach people for donations or support, because, you know, it meant that we were regulated and we were obviously also registered with the Charity Commission. So that did help a lot. And we carried on doing as many food parcels as we could, you know, and just distributing them through the volunteers that we have, who we refer to as our boots on the ground. So without them, we definitely wouldn't have been able to run the operation like we have, because obviously we're far away. It was just a case of, you know, we fundraise this side and buy the food that side, buy it locally, and they just put the parcels together and start distributing. So that worked very well, and we are super, super proud of what we achieved in that time, bearing in mind what a manic sort of situation it was for everybody. We then found, okay, we need to register as a charity as well in Namibia, because that will also help us to then not only tap from the UK donors in the UK, but also to tap into donors and potential sponsorships and grants that might be available within Namibia itself. So we have become registered as a charity in Namibia as well, HFN charity organisation. And I'm proud to say, you know, we are going strong. So we've moved from just supporting people with food parcels in a crisis situation to actually now setting up a food bank within local areas within Windhoek. So it's quite a new concept. I mean, there are people that do similar things, you know, doing food parcels within Windhoek. So it's not entirely a new concept. And there is, I think, there are food banks sort of operating in Namibia. But I guess what makes our operation unique is the fact that, you know, we are quintessentially Namibian. So all the people that are involved in the charity are all Namibian nationals. And we are women-led as well. So we take pride in the fact that our charity is led by women, and, you know, it speaks to our support of women empowerment as well. So that is also what makes our charity quite unique in that way. So we work with some schools in Windhoek and Rehoboth and Okahanya, and we distribute food parcels via the school council, if you like. So the principal and the life skills teachers that will be familiar with what the situation is for certain families at home. The criteria that we follow mainly is that there needs to be children within the household. So children are at the heart of our charity, and that is sort of where we thought, okay, let's at least just try and help the children. But, you know, through placing a food parcel within a house, within a home, it doesn't just feed the children. Obviously, it means mom and dad and nan and the grandparents or aunts and uncles, whoever is in that household, they get to eat as well. So we feel that that's important because it means, mom doesn't have to skip a meal just so the kids can eat. If mom's on dad's on strong medication or whatever, he too can have a meal for the day. So it's just a sort of more dignified way than having to get people to queue up with their soup bowls or their bowls, to come and ask for food. Also, it means that household is fed for about a week or two, depending on how long they can make the food stretch. So, and we find that it really does boost people's morale, I guess, in a way, and just gives them hope, because a food bank is not just handing out free food to people. That's exactly what we're saying to people. Look, that's not what it is. It really is there to help you out in your time of need. So if you're struggling a little bit, we can help you out with a food parcel. But it does mean we won't be able to keep supplying you with a food parcel. So we rotate. We've got a long list of beneficiaries that are, obviously there's a huge demand. So we rotate through the list as well. So if you've had a food parcel, obviously you probably wouldn't be able to get one again soon after. So we don't want people to become dependent on our food parcels, And then we also want to link people to other services. So if there's perhaps somebody in the household that has a disability, living with a disability, we might try and help you get a disability grant. Or if there's an elderly people in the household, we might try and help you get your pension or your grants. Even if it's just if there's been a bereavement in the family, to try and link you up with like counselling or support groups perhaps that might, help you through that difficult time, just to get you out of the dip that you're in, that is making you need help from a food bank. We find that people often say, why are you just handing out food? It's better to just, the saying, teach someone to fish and then, they'll always have food to eat. And yes, we are working towards that, very much so, where we want to be able to start growing our own food and, be more sustainable in that sense. And we are definitely working towards that. But for now, we are just trying to address the immediate need, The after effects of the COVID pandemic is still very much evident, in Namibia. People have lost their jobs and a lot of them haven't been able to find other jobs. The unemployment rate is really, really high, unfortunately. The suicide rate is really, really high, unfortunately. And people just in general just need to know that there is hope. There is some help out there when they're going through a difficult time. And that is why we thought we need to establish a food bank and have a, sort of a referral system going whereby we can work with other organizations that are similar and also other services. So like your social workers or your teachers at the schools or your nurses at the clinics that know who are the children that are maybe on strong medication, that would need to make sure that they get food. So that is what we're working towards here at Help for Nam.
Thank you. Help for Namibia. Thank you.
So I'm just your average Jane from, a town, a small town in Namibia. And I've managed to travel quite a bit to a few different countries. I've lived abroad for a while and I've been able to travel to quite a few countries, which I've been fortunate enough to do. But I have to say, when we were growing up, there tended to be this aspiration to want to always go to America or England, or you always just think, oh, it's so much better over there. And I guess it's through influences through TV or the newspapers or magazines that we used to read. And yes, while that is true, there are lots of opportunities as well abroad. I have to say, I think, I would love for our fellow Namibians, especially the youngsters, to realize that Namibia itself is a great country as well. It has so much potential, and there are so many good qualities about Namibia that you wouldn't necessarily find in other countries where you go. Something as small as like just how clean the country is, we take pride in the cleanliness. The roads are really good, so we don't have as many potholes and then we have all our natural resources as well that we can be proud of, and tourism, and the fact that we are such a vast country, and the population is really low, that can also, be a great benefit as well. And the people, we are a great people. So I just want to say to the youth out there, Namibia is a great country as well. Every country has its good and its bad attributes, I guess. But I would like for us to instill more pride in our country, more pride in Namibia, and let the young people realize that, yes, you might, even if you don't get the opportunity to go to other countries, you can still be successful and make, have a really good impact within your community back home. I know the opportunities probably aren't as many, and that is a shame. But when the opportunities do come along, grab it with both arms, and embrace it and try. So this is my family. I'm Stephanie, and I'm originally from Namibia.
Hi, my name is Sebastian, and I am half African. I've been to Namibia a few times, and Botswana is my favorite country because my birthday is the same day as Botswana's Independence Day.
Hi, my name is Claire, and I have Namibian heritage because of my mum, and I've been there around 3 or 4 times. My favourite thing there is probably the wildlife and the animals, and I've been on many game drives, and it's really nice there.
Hi, I'm James, and I met Stephanie in Namibia back in 1997. I go to Namibia quite often still through work, and I love going there because the people are very friendly and very kind, and I love the weather, all that beautiful sunshine and blue skies. I'm James, and I met Stephanie in 1997 in Namibia. I love going to Namibia. I go there for work.
Dad, why are you still talking?
My kids are focused.
Kaap vol hoop vertel stories van die Kaap en sy mense, en uit die stories en ervarings deel ons mooi en unieke plekke om te sien en te ervaar. Kaap vol hoop gaan waar die Kaapenaars gaan en gaan kuier waar die Kaapenaars kuier. Van die strande tot die wynlande en die sportvelde tot die restaurante. Ons kuier dalk sommer ook in iemand se kombuis vir daai familieresep van ouma. Ons eet die Kaapse tradisionele kosse en drink van sy beste wyne. Kaap vol hoop gesels met die gewone Kaapenaar en soms ook met die meer bekendes, maar week vir week vertel ons elkeen sy eie unieke storie op sy unieke manier. Kaap vol hoop kyk ook uit vir die Namibiërs in die Kaap. Sommige kom kuier net en sommige maak die Kaap hulle nuwe tuiste. Namibiërs in die Kaap gesels saam met Kaap vol hoop en deel self die mooi, die uniek en lekker wat op hul pad kom. In alles is Kaap vol hoop 'n program wat die mooi en die lag na vore wil bring en 'n program waar ons mekaar kan opbou en leer. Daar is hoop. Daar is 'n Kaap vol hoop.
En dit is al vir vandag se episode. Soos gewoonlik, as jy in Namibië is wat in die buiteland woon of jy weet dalk van iemand, Stuur gerus my e-pos na christine@rubicane.com.na. As jy na ouer episodes van Namibië sonder grense wil kyk, gaan eenvoudig na www.networkmediahub.com. Ek sien julle almal weer volgende week.